Last Thanksgiving, my son stood up at dinner and announced, "Dad's a loser. Mom's rich husband isn't. My name is Paul Johnson." What my 17-year-old didn't know was that while he was praising his stepfather's $6.8 million inheritance, I was hiding a $156 million cryptocurrency fortune I'd built in secret over 15 years. When my financial advisor called during dessert about hitting another portfolio milestone, I made a decision that destroyed my son's world in one phone call. His $89,000 Tesla? Gone Monday morning. His $68,000 prep school? Payment canceled immediately. His $1,800 monthly allowance? Account closed that night. But here's the part that really broke him. I'd been paying for everything while he gave his stepfather all the credit. 3 years of funding his entire lifestyle while watching him post on Instagram about how embarrassed he was by his poor librarian dad. 3 years of him refusing to invite me to school events because my bike was too embarrassing next to Gregory's Lamborghini. The humiliation was public. 8 family members heard every word, but when they discovered I had more money than everyone at that table combined, the silence was deafening. This is what happens when entitlement meets accountability, and when a quiet man finally stops being quiet. If you've ever been underestimated because of your job or judged by your appearance, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to know where you're watching from, and if you've ever had to teach someone the hard way that respect isn't inherited. This is the story of how I took back everything I'd given and taught my son that money doesn't buy character, but consequences can teach it. To understand what happened that night, you need to know how everyone saw me. I live in a 480 square foot studio apartment. Rent, $1,200 a month. Murphy bed that folds into the wall. One window facing the parking lot of a Wendy's. My neighbors are college students and people working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Every morning I ride my 2019 Trek bike to the Riverside Public Library, where I've worked for 20 years. The bike cost me $520 used. My work clothes come from Walmart. $30 jeans, $12 polo shirts, $60 jacket when it's cold. I carry my lunch in a brown paper bag because the cafeteria charges $8 for a sandwich. My ex-wife, Jennifer, lives in a different world now. After our divorce 3 years ago, she married Gregory Adams. Gregory inherited $6.8 million when his father died. Real estate empire, built by 3 generations of Adams family money. Gregory drives a matte black Lamborghini Huracan. $180,000. Their house is 4,200 square feet in Brookwood Estates. Every month I pay $2,800 in child support. On time, every time, direct from my $48,500 librarian salary. But here's what nobody knew. Every month I was also secretly paying for Ethan's life. Brookfield Prep Academy tuition, $68,000 per year. That's $5,667 every month, paid from a separate account. The Tesla Model S I bought him for his 17th birthday, $89,000, custom blue paint, his dream car. Monthly allowance, $1,800, deposited into his checking account every first of the month. Total support I was providing, $127,000 per year. Gregory knew none of this. Jennifer knew none of this. They thought Ethan's lifestyle came from Gregory's generosity. I let them think that. Why? Because I didn't want my son to feel different from his wealthy stepfather's world. I wanted him to fit in, to have opportunities, to never worry about money the way I did growing up. But somewhere along the way, Ethan stopped seeing me as his father who provided everything. He started seeing me as the embarrassment who showed up to school events on a bike. Last month, Ethan posted on Instagram, "Some people work at libraries. Others own libraries. Grateful for my stepdad showing me what success looks like." The photo was him and Gregory next to the Lamborghini. The caption got 247 likes from his Brookfield prep friends. I saw it. I saved a screenshot. I didn't say anything. 2 weeks ago, I got a text from Ethan. "Can you not come to my winter formal? Gregory's buying me a tux and some of my friends think it's weird that my real dad works at a library." I replied, "Of course, son. Have a great time." But something changed in me that day. 20 years I'd been building something real while hiding in plain sight. 20 years of careful investments, research, strategy. I'd bought my first Bitcoin in 2011 for $180. I'd watched tech stocks when everyone else was afraid. I'd built wealth quietly, methodically, without anyone knowing, and my own son was ashamed of me. The breaking point came 3 days before Thanksgiving. Ethan called asking for an extra $2,000 for a ski trip with Gregory's nephew. "Rich kids need rich kid money, you know," he said, laughing. "Good thing Gregory's got us covered. Gregory's got us covered." Not his father, who'd been covering everything for 3 years. I transferred the money. But I also made another transfer that same day. $500,000 from my crypto wallet to my checking account, because I had a feeling I was going to need it. The Thanksgiving dinner was at Jennifer and Gregory's house. Traditional family gathering, they said. My parents, Jennifer's sister, Gregory's brother with his wife and kids. 8 adults, 3 teenagers, all gathering to give thanks. I showed up on my bike wearing my $60 Walmart jacket, carrying a store-bought pumpkin pie because I don't have an oven in my studio apartment. Gregory answered the door in a $400 sweater, gold watch catching the light. "Paul, good to see you, buddy. You can put your bike around back." "Buddy," I smiled. "Thanks, Gregory, I brought pie." But as I walked into that house, marble countertops, crystal chandelier, original artwork, I knew this was going to be the last Thanksgiving where anyone confused who the real provider was. The dinner started normal enough. Turkey, stuffing, small talk about the weather. I sat at the far end of the table, between my dad and Jennifer's sister, Carol. Gregory held court at the head, telling stories about his latest real estate acquisition. "Picked up a commercial property downtown," he said, carving the turkey with theatrical precision. $1.2 million. Cash deal, closed in 2 weeks. Everyone nodded appreciatively. Ethan hung on every word. "That's the Adams way," Gregory continued. "When you see opportunity, you grab it. No hesitation, no financing headaches. Cash talks." My dad asked what kind of property. "Office building," Gregory explained. 12 units, fully leased, generating $180,000 annually. Not bad for a Tuesday morning's work. I did quick math in my head. 7% annual return. I'd made more than that in Bitcoin gains the previous week, but I kept eating my turkey. Then Ethan spoke up. "Paul, Gregory's teaching me about investing. Real estate, stocks, building generational wealth." He called me Paul, not Dad. Paul. "That's great, son," I said. "Gregory says most people waste their whole lives working for money instead of making money work for them. He's going to help me start a portfolio when I turn 18. Jennifer beamed. "Gregory's been such a mentor to Ethan, teaching him things about finance and business that, well..." She trailed off, glancing at me apologetically. "That his father couldn't teach him?" I finished quietly. "I didn't mean..." "It's okay, Jen, I understand." But Gregory wasn't done. "It's never too late to learn, Paul. Maybe I could give you some pointers, help you move beyond that paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle." Paycheck to paycheck. My checking account had $2.3 million in it. My investment portfolio was worth more than everyone at that table combined, but I was living paycheck to paycheck. "That's very generous," I said. Ethan jumped in. "You should totally take Gregory up on that, Paul. I mean, look around." He gestured at the dining room. "This is what financial success looks like. The house, the cars, the freedom. Gregory doesn't have to worry about making rent every month." My parents shifted uncomfortably. They knew I paid child support, but they didn't know about the other $127,000 I was quietly providing every year. "Ethan," my mother said gently, "your father works very hard." "At a library, Grandma. Gregory owns 12 office buildings. There's a difference." The table went quiet. I set down my fork. "What kind of difference?" "Come on, Paul, you know what I mean. Gregory drives a Lamborghini. You ride a bike. Gregory's planning a European vacation next month. You live in a studio apartment. It's not personal, it's just facts." Facts. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Account balance, $2,347,892.16. I stared at the number for a moment, then put the phone face down on the table. "You're right, Ethan. Facts matter." "Exactly. And the fact is, some people build wealth, and others work at libraries. Both are fine, but let's not pretend they're the same thing." Gregory nodded approvingly. "Exactly right. Understanding economic realities is the first step toward changing them." Jennifer's sister Carol was staring at her plate. My parents looked like they wanted to disappear. Gregory's brother was scrolling through his phone, pretending not to listen. This was my family, my son, explaining to a table full of people why his father was a financial failure. So what you're saying, I said slowly, is that respect is tied to net worth. I'm saying respect is tied to results, Ethan replied. Gregory gets results. He provides for this family. He creates value. He's successful. And I'm not successful. You're a good person, Paul. You work hard. But successful? I mean, look at your life. Look at this life. He gestured around the room again. One of these things is not like the other. I nodded. You're absolutely right. That's when my phone buzzed. Text message. I glanced at it. Margaret Wilson, Wilson Wealth Management. Congratulations. Your portfolio just hit $156 million. Call me when you can celebrate properly. I put the phone back down. You know what the real difference is between Gregory and me, Ethan? What's that? Gregory inherited his money. I earned mine. Gregory laughed. Paul, buddy, I appreciate the spirit, but what? But you think earning money is impossible for someone like me? I think there's nothing wrong with being a public servant. Libraries are important. But let's be realistic about income potential. I stood up slowly. You want to be realistic about income? Let's be realistic. Everyone was looking at me now. Ethan rolled his eyes. This should be good, he muttered. But my phone was ringing. Margaret Wilson, right on schedule. Excuse me, I said. I need to take this call. I answered the phone right there at the table. Paul, congratulations. Your portfolio just crossed the $156 million threshold. I had to call immediately. Margaret's voice was crystal clear on speaker. The entire table could hear every word. Thank you, Margaret, I said calmly. That's wonderful news. The Bitcoin position alone is now worth $124 million. Those early purchases from 2011 and 2012, pure genius. $180 average cost basis for 2,400 coins. I've never seen returns like this. Complete silence at the table. And your traditional portfolio is performing beautifully too. The blue chip stocks, the right investments, everything's up 23% this quarter. You're officially in the 9-figure club, Paul. I could hear forks being set down, glasses stopping mid-sip. Margaret, I'm actually at dinner with family right now. Could we discuss the details later? Of course, but I had to share the milestone. $156 million, Paul. You did it. I hung up. Nobody moved. Ethan was staring at me like I was a stranger. His mouth was slightly open. Gregory had gone completely pale. Jennifer was looking back and forth between me and the phone like she'd misheard something. Did she just say? Carol whispered. 156 million, I said quietly. Yes. Ethan found his voice first. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Because you're a librarian. You live in a studio apartment. You ride a bike. I live in a studio apartment because I choose to. I ride a bike because I enjoy it. I work at a library because I love books and learning. None of those things prevent someone from understanding investments. Gregory was shaking his head. Paul, if this is some kind of joke... You want to see the portfolio statements? The transaction history? The bank accounts? I pulled out my phone again and opened my Charles Schwab app. Account value, $42,847,921.33. I turned the screen toward Gregory. He squinted at it, leaned forward, then sat back heavily in his chair. Holy shit, he whispered. Language, Jennifer said automatically, but her voice was faint. Margaret mentioned Bitcoin, I continued. I bought my first coins in 2011. Most people thought it was fake internet money. I thought it was the future of finance. $180 per coin seemed expensive at the time. I opened my Coinbase app. Bitcoin holdings, 2,400 coins. Current value, $124,032,000. Ethan was staring at the screen. This can't be real. You're Tesla, I said to him. Where do you think the money came from? Gregory bought it. I looked at Gregory. Did you? Gregory shook his head slowly. No. Jennifer said you were handling it. Some kind of inheritance or insurance payout. Brookfield prep tuition. $68,000 per year for the last 3 years. Where did that money come from? Gregory pays for... Ethan started. No, Gregory interrupted. No, I don't. I thought your father was paying for school. Your monthly allowance, I continued. $1,800 deposited on the first of every month. Who do you think has been sending that? Ethan's face was changing color. You said you were broke. You said child support was difficult to manage. I never said I was broke. You assumed I was broke because I live simply. Jennifer found her voice. Paul, why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? That I'm good with money? That I made smart investments? Would it have changed how Ethan treats me? Of course it would have. Then you just proved my point. The room was dead quiet except for the sound of someone's wine glass being nervously tapped against the table. So when I post on Instagram about Gregory teaching me about success, Ethan said slowly, you're talking about my money, my success, my investments paying for your lifestyle while you publicly mock the person who provides it. Gregory cleared his throat. Paul, I had no idea. If I had known, you would have treated me differently, just like everyone else would have, just like Ethan would have. Ethan was staring at his hands. Dad, I didn't know. You didn't want to know. It was easier to be embarrassed by your library working father than to ask questions about where your Tesla came from. But why hide it? Because I wanted to see who you really were, whether you could respect me for who I am, not what I have. The silence stretched on. Finally, Ethan looked up. So what happens now? That's when my phone buzzed again. Another text from Margaret. Also, the anonymous charitable donations hit $2.3 million this year. The Literacy Foundation loves you. I showed Ethan the text. What happens now, I said, depends entirely on you. After the phone call, dinner resumed, but everything had changed. The conversations were stilted, forced. People kept glancing at me when they thought I wasn't looking. Gregory attempted to restart his earlier monologue about real estate, but his heart wasn't in it. The downtown property I mentioned, it's a solid investment. Conservative returns, but reliable. What's the cap rate? I asked casually. He paused. The what? Capitalization rate, annual net operating income divided by purchase price. You said $180,000 annual income on a $1.2 million purchase. That's 15%, which seems high for downtown commercial real estate. Well, it's complicated. There are other factors. Of course, just curious about the numbers. Jennifer was serving dessert, store-bought pumpkin pie and some elaborate chocolate creation Gregory had ordered from a bakery, but her hands were shaking slightly. Every few minutes she'd look at me like she was seeing a stranger. Ethan hadn't spoken since my last comment. He was pushing food around his plate, occasionally stealing glances at my phone, which was still sitting face down on the table. My father, bless him, tried to lighten the mood. Paul's always been good with numbers. Even as a kid, he could calculate tips faster than the adults. Really? Gregory said with forced interest. Oh, yes, and he was reading financial books in high school. Warren Buffett, Peter Lynch. I never understood it, but Paul devoured that stuff. My mother nodded. We used to joke that he was going to be rich someday. Then he went to library school and we figured he'd chosen knowledge over money. Why not both? I said quietly. That's when Ethan finally spoke up. You really started buying Bitcoin in 2011? October 2011 was my first purchase, 50 coins at $185 each. I'd been reading about blockchain technology, studying the white paper. Most people dismissed it as a fad. But you didn't. I saw it as a fundamental shift. Digital scarcity combined with decentralized verification. It solved problems that traditional currency couldn't solve. Gregory leaned forward. So you just bought in? Gradually. I allocated 10% of my salary to cryptocurrency for 3 years, 2011, 2012, 2013. Total investment, about $47,000. Average cost basis, $180 per coin. And now, I checked my phone, Bitcoin's at $51,680 right now, so that $47,000 is worth approximately $124 million. Carol, who had been quiet most of the evening, whistled softly. That's a 2,600% return. Actually, it's a 263,900% return, I corrected. But who's counting? Gregory set down his fork. Paul, I need to ask you something directly. Go ahead. If you have this kind of money, why do you live the way you do? The apartment, the bike, the whole modest lifestyle? It was a fair question. I thought about how to answer it. A few reasons. First, money is a tool, not a trophy. I don't need a mansion to feel successful. Second, wealth attracts the wrong kind of attention. People treat you differently when they know you're rich. I glanced meaningfully at Ethan. Third, I enjoy my work. The library isn't a job I'm stuck with. It's a job I chose. I like helping people find information, teaching kids to read, building community resources. Money doesn't change that. But surely you could do more with your wealth, bigger impact, larger scale. Who says I'm not? I pulled up another app on my phone. Riverside County Literacy Foundation, anonymous donor contribution since 2018, $2.3 million, after-school programs, adult education, free books for low-income families. That's you? Among other things. I prefer to help quietly. Jennifer was shaking her head. Paul, I don't understand. We were married for 15 years. How did I not know about any of this? You knew I was interested in investing. You knew I read financial books. You just weren't interested in the details. But this level of success happened gradually. The first million took 12 years. The second million took 2 years. The next 10 million took 18 months. Compound growth accelerates. Ethan was looking at me with something between awe and confusion. Dad, when did you know? When did you realize you were actually rich? When I hit 10 million, I started paying attention. When I hit 50 million, I hired Margaret to help manage everything properly. When I hit 100 million last year, I realized I needed to make some decisions about legacy and family. What kind of decisions? Whether to keep hiding my success or start teaching it. The table was quiet again. Outside, I could hear kids playing in the street, someone's dog barking, normal neighborhood sounds that seemed surreal against the conversation we were having. So the Tesla, Ethan said slowly. You've been paying for my whole life. Not your whole life, your expenses. There's a difference. But the tuition, the allowance, the car. I wanted you to have opportunities. I didn't want you to worry about money the way I did growing up. But you also wanted to see if I'd respect you without knowing about the money. Yes, and I failed that test. I looked at my son, really looked at him, 17 years old, smart, privileged, confused. We'll see, I said. The tension at the table was becoming unbearable. Everyone was trying to process what they'd learned, but normal dinner conversation was impossible. You could feel the weight of unspoken questions, judgments being reconsidered, assumptions crumbling in real time. That's when Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face lit up. Oh, cool, Jake's here. Jake? Jennifer asked. Jake Morrison, from school. He was supposed to stop by after dinner with his parents. They're picking up something from Gregory. Gregory nodded. Right, the Morrison family. Bill's looking at one of my properties. I forgot they were coming by tonight. Before anyone could say anything else, the doorbell rang. Gregory got up to answer it, and moments later we could hear voices in the foyer. Multiple voices. This wasn't just Jake and his parents. Sorry we're a bit late, a man's voice said. Traffic was terrible. We brought the Hendersons too, hope that's okay. They're interested in the property as well. Of course, the more the merrier, Gregory replied. We're just finishing up Thanksgiving dinner. 6 people walked into the dining room. Jake Morrison, tall and confident like most Brookfield prep kids. His parents, Bill and Susan Morrison, both dressed in expensive casual wear. And another couple, introduced as the Hendersons, who looked like they just stepped out of a country club. Everyone, this is my stepson Ethan, Gregory said proudly. And this is Jennifer, my wife, and Ethan's father, Paul. Handshakes all around. I noticed the subtle pause when people registered my Walmart clothes against the backdrop of Gregory's expensive house. Paul works at the public library, Gregory added, and I could hear the slight condescension creeping back into his voice now that he had an audience. The revelation about my wealth hadn't fully sunk in yet, especially with strangers around to impress. How nice, Susan Morrison said with that particular tone wealthy people use when they want to sound supportive but can't hide their pity. Public service is so important. Jake slapped Ethan on the back. Dude, I saw your Instagram post about the ski trip. Aspen is going to be insane. My dad's flying us out on the jet. Yeah, I can't wait, Ethan replied. But I noticed he glanced nervously at me. Bill Morrison turned to Gregory. So, about that commercial property. The numbers you showed me looked interesting, but I had a few questions about the cap rate. Gregory's face flushed slightly. Right, well, as I was explaining to Paul earlier, it's complicated. There are various factors that affect the calculation. What's the property generating annually? Bill asked. $180,000. And the purchase price? $1.2 million. Bill frowned. That's a 15% cap rate. That's either an incredible deal or there are some serious issues with the property. Prime downtown real estate rarely yields more than 6 or 7%. An uncomfortable silence. Gregory was clearly out of his depth. Actually, I said quietly, Gregory might have misspoken about the numbers. All eyes turned to me. Gregory looked grateful for the rescue attempt. What Paul means, Gregory started. What I mean is that a 15% cap rate on downtown commercial real estate would be extraordinarily high. Either the property has significant vacancy issues, deferred maintenance problems, or the income figures include one-time payments that won't recur. In a healthy market, you'd expect somewhere between 4 and 7% for that asset class. Bill Morrison stared at me. You're familiar with commercial real estate analysis? I have some experience with investment properties. What kind of experience? Jake jumped in before I could answer. Mr. Johnson works at a library, Dad. He's not really in the investment business. The condescension in Jake's voice was obvious. He was performing for his parents, showing them how sophisticated he was, how well he understood social hierarchies. Ethan's face went red. Jake, don't... What? It's not insulting. Libraries are fine. But let's be real about who knows about real estate investments and who doesn't. Susan Morrison laughed. Jake, be nice. I'm just saying, there's a difference between reading about investments and actually making them. Some people work for money. Others make money work for them. No judgment, just different worlds. The echo of Ethan's earlier words was unmistakable. These were the phrases he'd learned, the attitudes he'd absorbed from his wealthy friends. Bill Morrison nodded approvingly at his son. That's exactly right, Jake. Understanding the difference between earned income and investment income is crucial for building generational wealth. Which is why I'm so grateful for Gregory, Ethan said, and I could see him sliding back into his comfortable role of stepfather worship. He's teaching me things about finance and business that most people never learn. Smart kid, Bill said to Gregory. Starting young is key. That's when Jake made his mistake. Yeah, Ethan's lucky to have Gregory as a role model. I mean, no offense to your real dad, but working at a library isn't exactly going to teach you about building wealth, right? Dead silence. Ethan looked mortified. Jake, stop. What? I'm just being honest. Look, I'm sure Mr. Johnson is a nice guy, but successful people learn from successful people. That's just how it works. Bill Morrison was nodding along. Hard truth, but accurate. You want to learn about money? You learn from people who have money. How much money? I asked quietly. Bill laughed. Well, that's not really polite to discuss, but let's just say we're comfortable. High 7 figures, low 8 figures, enough to provide perspective on real wealth building. Interesting, I said. And you think someone needs 8 figures to understand investing? To understand real investing? Absolutely. Anyone can buy a few stocks or put money in a 401k. But serious wealth building requires serious capital and serious knowledge. I nodded thoughtfully. So what would you consider serious capital? Minimum $10 million to play in the real game. Below that, you're just an amateur. Jake was smirking. See, Mr. Johnson? This is what I mean. Guys like my dad and Gregory operate at a different level. I pulled out my phone. You're absolutely right, Jake. Some people do operate at a different level. I opened my investment portfolio and turned the screen toward Bill Morrison. Is $156 million serious enough capital for you? Bill Morrison's eyes went wide. He grabbed my phone, stared at the screen, then looked at me, then back at the screen. This is your account? Portfolio summary, updated in real time. He scrolled down, seeing individual holdings. Bitcoin, $124 million. Traditional stocks, $42 million. REITs and bonds, $15 million. Cash, $2.3 million. Holy fucking shit, he whispered. Dad, Jake protested. Jake, shut up. Just shut up for a minute. Bill was still staring at my phone. Paul, is this real? Want to see the transaction history? I bought my first Bitcoin in October 2011. 50 coins at $185 each. I took the phone back and opened my Coinbase app, scrolling to the earliest transactions. October 15th, 2011. Purchase, 50 BTC at $185.32. October 29th, 2011. Purchase, 100 BTC at $178.96. November 12th, 2011. Purchase, 150 BTC at $172.44. Page after page of early Bitcoin purchases, all time-stamped, all at prices that now seemed impossibly low. Susan Morrison had moved closer to look over her husband's shoulder. 2011? You were buying Bitcoin in 2011. Through 2013, total of 2,400 coins at an average cost of $180. Most people thought it was a scam. Jake was staring at me like I'd just materialized from another dimension. You're a Bitcoin millionaire? Among other things, I opened my Charles Schwab account. Stock portfolio, $42,847,921.33. Blue chip stocks, growth stocks, dividend aristocrats, international funds. A perfectly balanced portfolio that had been growing steadily for 20 years. This is impossible, Jake said. You work at a library. I work at a library because I choose to work at a library. The job doesn't determine the person. Gregory had been silent through this whole exchange, but now he found his voice. Paul, I owe you an apology. A massive apology. For what? For treating you like you needed my help, like you were struggling financially. Bill Morrison was shaking his head. Paul, why didn't you say anything? When we were talking about investment experience, about serious capital, you didn't ask. You assumed. But this changes everything. Does it? Does it change who I am as a person? Does it change my character, my values, my intelligence? Susan Morrison looked embarrassed. Of course not, but you would have treated me differently if you'd known, just like everyone else? Ethan was staring at his hands. The full weight of what had happened over the past hour was hitting him. Let me ask you something, Jake, I said. 5 minutes ago, you said successful people learn from successful people. Do you still think that's true? Yes. So if I have more money than your father, more money than Gregory, more money than anyone at this table, what does that make me? Jake's mouth opened and closed like a fish. It makes you successful, he finally whispered. And what should someone your age do if they want to learn about building wealth? Learn from you. But 5 minutes ago, I was just a librarian who couldn't possibly understand real investing. The room was completely silent except for the sound of someone's breathing getting faster. I think it was Ethan. Bill Morrison cleared his throat. Paul, I need to ask, if you have this kind of wealth, why do you live so modestly? The apartment, the bike. Because I'm not insecure about money. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. The portfolio speaks for itself. But people must treat you differently when they don't know. Exactly. They treat me based on who they think I am rather than who I actually am. It's very revealing. I look directly at Ethan. It shows me who has character and who doesn't, who judges people by their contributions versus their possessions, who respects effort versus inheritance. Gregory shifted uncomfortably. Paul, about the inheritance comment. You inherited $6.8 million, Gregory. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not the same as earning $156 million through research, patience, and smart decisions. No, it's not. And yet somehow inherited wealth was seen as more respectable than earned wealth. Why do you think that is? No one had an answer. Henderson, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. Paul, what do you do for a living? I mean, besides the library. I research companies. I study market trends. I analyze financial statements. I evaluate cryptocurrencies and emerging technologies. I make investment decisions that have generated returns of over 250,000%. The library job pays for my basic expenses and gives me access to resources. Everything else is funded by 20 years of careful investing. How much time do you spend on investing? 2 to 3 hours every morning before work, 2 hours most evenings, 4 to 6 hours on weekends. It's been my primary intellectual focus for 2 decades. Bill Morrison was nodding slowly. So you're essentially a full-time investor who happens to work at a library. I'm a full-time investor who chooses to work at a library because I believe in public education and community service. And you've never told anyone about your success? I've told my financial advisor. I've told my accountant. I've told my attorney. The people who need to know, but not your family. I looked around the table. My family just found out. Ethan finally looked up. Dad, I'm so sorry. For what specifically? For being embarrassed by you, for judging you, for thinking Gregory was more successful when you've been paying for everything. And for posting about it on Instagram, for telling my friends you were just a librarian, for not inviting you to school events, and for not asking questions, for not wanting to know more about your life, your interests, your work. I nodded. That's a good start. Jake was still staring at my phone. Mr. Johnson, could you teach me about investing? What makes you think you're ready to learn? I don't know. I just know I was wrong about everything. Being wrong is the first step toward being right. But learning about investing requires humility, patience, and respect for the process. Do you have those qualities? I want to have them. Wanting and having are different things. I stood up from the table. I think it's time for me to head home.
Paul, wait, Jennifer said. We need to talk about this. About everything.
What's to talk about?
The money, the support you've been providing, the way we've all treated you. The money is my money. The support was my choice, and the way you've treated me tells me everything I need to know about character. Ethan stood up too. Dad, please don't leave angry. I'm not angry, Ethan. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. What can I do to fix this? I looked at my son, 17 years old, privileged, confused, and for the first time in years, genuinely asking for guidance. That depends entirely on what you do next. I walked toward the door, but Gregory stopped me. Paul, wait. We need to figure out how to move forward from this. I've already figured it out. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Ethan, what's your checking account number? He looked confused.
Why? The account where I deposit your $1,800 monthly allowance. He rattled off the numbers. I typed them into my phone. Account closure initiated. Final balance will be transferred to your savings account, minus the closure fee. Dad, what are you doing? I'm teaching you about consequences. Next, I called Margaret Wilson. She answered on the first ring. Paul, twice in one night. This must be important. Margaret, I need you to cancel a recurring payment. Brookfield Prep Academy tuition for Ethan Johnson. Cancel the automatic payment immediately. Of course. Should I schedule a final payment for this semester? No final payment. Ethan had gone pale. Dad, you can't just stop paying my tuition. I can, and I did. The December payment is due Monday. It won't be made. Jennifer stood up. Paul, you can't pull him out of school in the middle of his senior year. I'm not pulling him out. I'm simply not paying. If Gregory or you want to continue his education at Brookfield Prep, you're welcome to write the check. Gregory cleared his throat. Paul, that's $68,000. I don't have that kind of liquid cash readily available. Then I guess Ethan will be finishing high school at Riverside Public High. But his friends, his college applications, his whole senior year? Should have thought about that before he decided his father was an embarrassment. Ethan was starting to panic. Dad, please, I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I know you are. Sorry that your actions have consequences. My phone was already ringing. Margaret calling back. Paul, I also need to ask about the Tesla lease payment. It's scheduled to auto-pay tomorrow for $1,247. Cancel that too, and contact the leasing company. I want the vehicle returned immediately. Dad, no! Ethan practically shouted. You can't take my car. It's not your car, it's my car that I've been letting you drive. Big difference. I turned to Gregory. The Tesla is parked in your driveway. The repo company will pick it up Monday morning. Make sure Ethan removes his personal belongings. Bill Morrison was watching this unfold with fascination. Paul, isn't this a bit extreme? Is it? My son just spent the evening explaining to a room full of people why I'm a failure and why Gregory deserves credit for providing the lifestyle I actually pay for. What would you do? I don't know. I do. I'd teach my son that respect and consequences are related concepts. Margaret was still on the phone. Paul, should I also cancel the insurance policy that lists Ethan as a beneficiary? Yes. Remove him immediately. Set up a new policy with charitable beneficiaries only. Wait, Jennifer said. You're removing Ethan from your will? From my insurance policy, yes. The will requires a meeting with my attorney. Ethan was now visibly shaking. Dad, you can't do this. I made a mistake. I said stupid things. But you can't just destroy my whole life. I'm not destroying your life. I'm revealing what your life actually looks like without my financial support. But college applications, scholarships, my whole future will depend on your character, your effort, and your intelligence, just like everyone else's. I turned to address the entire room. For 3 years, I've been quietly providing $127,000 per year to support Ethan's lifestyle. Tuition, car, allowance, clothes, activities, everything. And for 3 years, he's been crediting Gregory for that support while publicly mocking me. Paul, Gregory said, I had no idea. That's part of the problem. Nobody asked questions. Nobody wanted to know where the money was actually coming from. It was easier to assume that the librarian was broke and the trust fund baby was generous. Jake Morrison raised his hand tentatively. Mr. Johnson, what about the college fund? What college fund? Ethan said you'd been saving for his college. He said it was around $50,000. I looked at Ethan. Did you tell people I had a college fund? Yes. I thought it would be embarrassing if they knew I didn't have any college money saved. So you lied about my financial planning to protect your image. It wasn't really lying, it was lying. And as it happens, there is a college fund. Want to know how much? I opened another account on my phone. 529 education savings plan, current balance, $847,293.22. $847,000, I said, but that's been transferred to a different beneficiary as of tonight. What? Who? The Riverside County Literacy Foundation. They'll use it for scholarships for students who actually respect education and the people who provide it. The silence in the room was deafening. Henderson finally spoke. Paul, don't you think you're being a bit harsh? I've spent 3 years watching my son become an entitled, disrespectful person who values money over character. I've enabled that behavior by hiding my success and allowing him to credit someone else for my contributions. Now I'm correcting the mistake. But he's just 17. At 17, I was working part-time to help my parents pay bills while maintaining straight A's and studying investment strategies. Age isn't an excuse for character failure. Ethan was crying now, actual tears. Dad, please, give me a chance to make this right. You'll have plenty of chances. At Riverside Public High, taking the bus, with a part-time job to pay for your own clothes and activities. How am I supposed to get to school? The same way I get to work, public transportation, or you could ask Gregory for a ride. I headed for the door again. Paul, Jennifer called after me. When will you talk to Ethan again? When he has something worth saying. What does that mean? When he understands the difference between being sorry for getting caught and being sorry for his choices. When he can demonstrate actual change rather than just promising it. I opened the door. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And I left. Monday morning came fast. I was at the library by 7:30 a.m., same as always. Unlocked the building, turned on the lights, checked the overnight book return. Normal routine. But my phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m. 17 missed calls from Jennifer, 12 from Ethan, 3 from Gregory. 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer any of them. At 8:15, my phone rang. Margaret Wilson. Paul, good morning. Just confirming that all the account changes went through. The tuition payment was successfully canceled. The Tesla lease has been terminated, and the insurance beneficiary changes are complete. Thank you, Margaret. Any pushback from the institutions? None. Everything was properly documented as your personal accounts and decisions. The leasing company will collect the vehicle this afternoon. Perfect. Paul, if you don't mind me asking, what prompted all these changes? Family dynamics needed adjustment. I see. Well, you certainly have the financial flexibility to make whatever changes you feel are necessary. That was the beauty of having real wealth. Options. At 9:20, a woman I didn't recognize walked into the library. Well-dressed, nervous energy. Are you Paul Johnson? I am. I'm Susan Morrison, Jake's mother. From last night. I nodded. How can I help you? I wanted to apologize for what Jake said, for how we all behaved. We had no idea. About my financial situation? Why would you? And why should it matter? It shouldn't. That's the point. We judged you unfairly. You judged me accurately based on the information you had. The lesson isn't about judgment. It's about assumptions. She shifted uncomfortably. Jake didn't sleep last night. He keeps talking about what he said, how wrong he was. What he said revealed how he thinks. The wrongness wasn't in the words. It was in the attitude. Would you consider talking to him? About investing? About how you built your wealth? Why? Because he needs to understand that success comes in different forms, that wisdom isn't always obvious. I considered this. What makes you think he's ready to learn? Because he's embarrassed, really embarrassed, and sometimes embarrassment is the beginning of wisdom. Maybe, but probably not. At 11:45, my phone rang. Jennifer again. This time I answered. Paul, we need to talk. About what? About Ethan. He's devastated. He hasn't eaten since yesterday. He's not going to school. He's just sitting in his room staring at the wall. That sounds like a normal response to consequences. Paul, you can't just cut off all support without warning. I absolutely can. And I did. But his education, his future, will be determined by his choices going forward, not my money going backward. Riverside Public High doesn't have the same college prep programs. Then he'll have to work harder, study more, take initiative. You know, things that build character. Long pause. Gregory wants to pay for the tuition. Gregory's welcome to try. What do you mean? I mean, $68,000 is a lot of money, even for someone with Gregory's inheritance, especially if he wants to cover the remaining semester plus next semester plus college. How much would that cost? Around $170,000 for high school completion plus college deposits, plus car payments, insurance, clothes, activities, living expenses, probably $200,000 total. Another long pause. Gregory says he doesn't have that kind of liquid assets. Then I guess Ethan will be learning about public education. Paul, you're being cruel. I'm being consistent. For 3 years, Ethan has explained to anyone who'll listen that Gregory is the successful one who provides for the family. Now Gregory gets to prove it. That's not fair. What's not fair is me funding a lifestyle that earns me contempt while someone else gets the credit. At 2:30 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. Mr. Johnson, this is Jake Morrison. Could I come talk to you? I want to apologize properly and ask some questions about investing. I replied, library closes at 9 p.m. I'll be here until then. At 6:15, Jake Morrison walked into the library. He looked like he'd been through a washing machine. Rumpled clothes, messy hair, dark circles under his eyes. Mr. Johnson? Jake, what can I do for you? I wanted to say I'm sorry, really sorry. Not just because you have money, but because I was a jerk. Apology accepted. Anything else? Could you teach me how you did it? The investing, the wealth building? Why? Because I realized I don't know anything. I thought I understood money because my dad has money, but he inherited most of it. You actually built yours. What makes you think you're ready to learn? Because I spent all night reading about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and stock investing. I checked out 4 books from this library. I want to understand how someone can start with nothing and build something real. Interesting. Maybe embarrassment could lead to education. The first lesson, I said, is that investing isn't about getting rich quick. It's about getting rich slowly through patience, research, and compound growth. I understand. The second lesson is that most people aren't willing to do the work. They want shortcuts, tips, secrets, but there are no shortcuts. What kind of work? Reading, studying, learning accounting and finance, understanding businesses, markets, technologies, spending years building knowledge before risking significant money. How long did it take you? I've been studying investments for 25 years. I'm still learning. Jake nodded earnestly. Could you recommend some books to start with? I walked him over to the finance section and pulled out 5 books. Start with these. When you've read all 5, come back and we'll talk about the next level. Really? If you're serious about learning, I'm willing to teach, but I don't waste time on people who aren't committed. I'm committed. We'll see. As Jake left with his stack of books, my phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. Dad,
I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need you to know that I understand now. I was wrong. I was ungrateful. I was embarrassed by the wrong things. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Actions fix things, not words."
2 weeks later, on a cold December morning, I was opening the library when I saw someone sitting on the front steps. Ethan, wearing a Riverside Public High School sweatshirt, holding a folder. "Dad?" "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Waiting for you. I need to show you something." I unlocked the door and gestured for him to follow me inside. "I transferred to Riverside Public last Monday," he said. "It's different from Brookfield Prep. Bigger classes, less money, more diversity. But you know what? It's better." "How so?" "Because nobody knows about my previous life. Nobody knows I used to drive a Tesla or go to private school. I'm just another student who has to work for grades." He opened his folder and pulled out a report card. 4 A's and 2 B's. 2 weeks of actual effort, he said. No special privileges, no expensive tutoring, just studying and paying attention. I nodded. "That's good. I also got a job." He pulled out a pay stub. "At Riverside Market, stocking shelves and bagging groceries, 15 hours a week, $12 an hour. I've made $180 so far." "What do you plan to do with the money?" "Save it for college and pay you back eventually." "Pay me back for what?" "For everything. The tuition, the car, the allowance. All the money you spent while I was acting like an ungrateful idiot." I sat down at my desk. "Ethan, you'll never be able to pay back $200,000 on a grocery store salary." "I know, but I can try, and I can promise never to take anything for granted again." He pulled out another piece of paper, a typed letter. "I wrote this for Instagram. I wanted you to read it before I post it." The letter was titled, "I Was Wrong About Success." For the past 3 years, I've posted about my stepfather, Gregory, and how he taught me about success and wealth. I bragged about his cars, his house, his business success. I said he was teaching me about money while my real father worked at a library. I was completely wrong. My real father, Paul Johnson, built a $156 million investment portfolio while working as a public librarian. Every dollar I spent, every privilege I enjoyed, every opportunity I had came from his hard work and smart investing. Meanwhile, I was publicly embarrassing him and crediting someone else for his success. I learned last month that respect isn't about what car you drive or what house you live in. It's about character, effort, and how you treat people, especially people who sacrifice for you. I'm finishing high school at Riverside Public, working at a grocery store, and learning what it means to earn things instead of expecting them. My dad taught me the most expensive lesson I'll ever learn, that humility and gratitude matter more than money. If you're reading this, and you have parents who work hard for you, respect them. If you have teachers, coaches, or mentors who invest in your future, thank them. And if someone judges you by your job title instead of your character, remember that their judgment says more about them than it does about you. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think it's honest. Should I post it?" "That's your decision." "I want to, but I also want to ask you something else." "What?" "Would you teach me about investing? Really teach me, not just give me money to play with. I want to understand how you built what you built." I studied his face. 2 weeks ago he was embarrassed by my profession. Now he was asking to learn from it. "What makes you think you're ready?" "Because I spent the last 2 weeks reading every investing book in this library. Because I understand now that wealth isn't about inheritance or luck, it's about knowledge and patience, and because I want to build something real instead of just spending other people's money. Investing requires discipline. It means saving money instead of spending it. It means studying instead of partying. It means making decisions based on research, not emotions. I understand. It also means accepting that you'll lose money sometimes, that markets go down as well as up, that getting rich slowly is better than trying to get rich quick. I understand that too. And it means respecting the process, not looking for shortcuts or secrets or guaranteed returns. "Dad, I understand. I want to learn the right way." I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a business card. Margaret Wilson, Wilson Wealth Management. Call Margaret next week. Tell her you want to open a custodial investment account. Minimum deposit is $1,000. I only have $180. Then you need to work longer and save more. How long? Until you have $1,000, and until you've read 10 more investing books, and until you can explain the difference between growth stocks and value stocks, the concept of compound interest, and why diversification matters. That could take months. Good. The longer it takes, the more serious you are. He nodded. Dad, are we okay? We're getting there. What do I need to do to earn your trust back? Keep doing what you're doing. Work hard, stay humble, prove that the changes are real. And then? And then we'll talk about college funds and financial planning and long-term wealth building. For the first time in weeks, Ethan smiled. Thank you, Dad. Thank me when you've earned it. As he left for school, I realized something important. The $200,000 I'd spent on his previous lifestyle was gone forever. But the lesson he'd learned was worth far more than that. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Have you ever had to teach someone in your family about respect and consequences? Sometimes the most expensive gifts are the ones that cost us nothing but mean everything. Some people inherit money, others earn it, but everyone has to earn respect.